Okay, so
We're on your turf
we're
today.
on my turf today, and
The wave of technology has struck
the
you.
yellow wave of technology.
Not sure why we're yellow,
Yeah,
but
I'm not sure if that'll even. Who knows? Um, but we're here again for last time for a little while anyway, because
yeah.
I'm leaving town. Uh, and you, how was your honeymoon?
Good.
Yeah.
Very, very good.
But
Enjoyed it.
anyway, thought we'd do some things here before, well, we still have the chance. And one of the things we did is we just watched uh, Cena and Punk from Money in the Bank, directly followed by um,
Best in the world.
Best in the World main event of Richards and Edwards for the title. So I had seen both these matches before, and you had not. So why don't you tell me a little bit about what you think watching both of them?
Okay.
You know.
I think this will be a really interesting comparison.
Yeah.
Um, two main events from two contrasting companies at turning points. Both companies at somewhat of a crossroads or a turning point coming into the event. Let's start with Cena Punk because that's obviously the bigger of the two
Right now,
on the
anyway,
wrestling
yeah.
scale.
Mhm.
My
And the more
impressions
current.
watching the match, it lived up to every expectation that you would want to have
You could have really.
watching a WWE match. And I pointed out to you while we were watching it that Ring of Honor, routinely gives us what we want to see in a product.
Yeah.
But when the WWE gives you what you want to see, they cannot be beat.
Yeah.
And that Cena versus Punk match, and really the entire storyline, and you talked about how quickly it snowballed, and how little time was taken to put it together and have it come off so effectively.
2 weeks.
It's just better. And when they do it right, they do it right. And
Yeah.
that's everything was right about this match. The build up to the match, the promos at the pay per view, the opening pay per view promo, and the promo before the match itself. It felt like you were watching a
Yeah,
movie,
yeah.
And then when the actual match started, it's just this whole atmosphere and this mood set in, and it played to the fact that the WWE has so many more resources and they know what they're doing. It's been so confusing as to why they haven't been doing this every day for so long.
Yeah.
But when they decided to, get their head on straight and really do this, they achieved, as far as I'm concerned, perfection in pulling off the story and the match. And I think my biggest concern was that this particular storyline going into Money in the Bank lacked a lot of in-ring action to build it. And traditionally, that's what you want to see. I think of great feuds like Triple H and Batista. They had the three pay-per-view matches
Mm-hmm.
to build their
Yeah.
story, and you had matches, going back to the early 2000s where like Batista or Benoit and Angle building up their story.
Yes.
Everything had to be done in ring, and then they just added outside elements. This was all outside elements going into this match, and the match itself was able to live up to and surpass
Far surpass.
the hype
Yeah.
that it had created for itself. I was very impressed with the fact that these two guys, CM Punk and John Cena, were able to pull off such they had so much chemistry in this match, and they played off of each other so well, and they manipulated the crowd so well, and they told the story during the match, and that's something that we complained about quite often is that wrestling is supposed to be that way. It is supposed to be about telling a story during and through the match, and that those two elements, those two characters in the ring, are supposed to channel that story and project that to you. They did that in this match, and it was just so satisfying. I
It
think
was.
just what I felt afterwards is that I was satisfied with the product and the result.
It's a really good feeling when you come away from a WWE match main event like that, and you get that feeling. I think you can make an argument as far as like why they don't do it all the time. You can make an argument as to sometimes like the magic just happens that way, but
Right.
but just that's the thing is that WWE has the money and the audience to make things special in a way that the indies just can't sometimes. And that's not to take away from anything they do, but
Exactly.
they when WWE can match the in ring product. of the indie talent. Then they can build up the story around it. You said, when we were watching the Ring of Honor match, you said this feels like I'm watching a football game, an NFL game, like a sports and athletic competition. Punk Cena felt like watching a movie. I mean,
it was like watching like the greatest action movie combined with a Darren Androfsky directed
Sure.
plot.
Yeah.
It felt like it
Aronofsky.
had it felt like it had all of the outside elements that make you want to watch a movie. The script, the plot,
the hero villain thing.
yeah, the story to it, and then it had all of the combustible action elements in the actual match itself. And to my point about the WWE just getting it right, they have things like a production team, and they've got two to three to four times the cameras that Ring of Honor and TNA employ, and they've got HD, and they've got the audio. They've got all of the audio elements, and then the video packages, which I've always said were the best in the business and always have been. Even when the company's been at its worst, the video packages have been the best.
Although TNA was doing really good.
They drew all of that together, and it just felt like it was a combined effort by everyone in the company to say.
It was just everything worked. The
it
storyline
felt
was
like
amazing.
they wanted to come out and prove
the match
themselves.
was amazing. Yeah.
In a lot of ways, I felt like they were trying to prove themselves, and they proved it.
What I think the feeling I got the most out of after watching the pay-per-view as a whole, and particularly the main event, was it really feels like they're trying to get the attention of the fans. It almost felt like they've
in a new way.
Like they've heard, we know that WWE and their stars have been more involved in the event lately with Twitter and with all this stuff. So
they've reached out to the same community.
More
they've reached out to the same community they've been trying to reject and degrade.
They've done stuff. They've done groundbreaking stuff at Comic-Con now for 2 years in a row, and
the things
I
they're
can
doing
almost see them
on Twitter and Facebook with building characters and having characters reach out to fans. Like I even interacted with a wrestler recently, and
we interacted with a company recently. That was awesome.
That was it's just they're trying to reach out to this internet community, but at the same time they have for so long, and Michael Cole's been the character voice of that, trying to shove it down, keep it off the air, pretend it doesn't exist, and there's been this kind of double standard that's existed between wanting to use those elements to get you to watch your show, but wanting you to pretend that everything else out there doesn't exist, that only the WWE.com message boards matter.
Yeah.
And it just felt like they were breaking down that wall this time.
Exactly. And it's like you almost got the feeling that somebody become Triple H maybe, or even Vince McMahon, probably not Vince McMahon, but somebody had been hearing people talk about how WrestleMania was lackluster, and had been hearing people talk about how their product wasn't that great,
and lacked magic moments for quite some time now,
and decided to really try and do something that would shake everybody out of this apathy. And in a
lot of ways we've been lulled. We talked about how we've been lulled by the fact that the product has been so lackluster, and they have lacked major magic moments, and even the major pay-per-views. Even the major pay-per-views have kind of lacked those pay-per-view elements, and on top of that too, they went the PG route. They started kind of drawing. The whole thing about wrestling being removed
they lack
from the
a higher rating
image,
than PG.
And they kind of lulled you into this almost kind of complacency with their product, to the point where fans like us were like, we're just not interested, and the other fans were like, well, we know what to expect because it's the WWE. That's the way they do things. And then out of nowhere, and literally nowhere on the calendar, even in the WWE realm of things, where they usually build up for the major 4 pay-per-views or going into WrestleMania or setting up the Rumble, this is during the summer. This isn't even leading up to SummerSlam. Like, it's now going to be part of that.
It's going to now, and
this
I think
was
that's
in the middle of
big.
2 really poorly played off pay-per-views, going into what was going to probably be another equally poor pay-per-view. And
probably also lack quality.
Out of nowhere, it just really felt like, for once we were being treated like intelligent fans who knew what was going on, and they knew that we knew what was
We're
going
being
on,
respected.
but they were respecting our knowledge, and then in turn using that against us. You know, and that's
trying to fool us and trying to give
that's
us
what
something
the
that we didn't see
magic.
coming.
That's what the magic of the wrestling business is that we're all supposed to be in on this.
Yeah.
We all get it, but you know, what do you do to then keep us interested or spark that curiosity or that element of unknown, and just waiting for that match to start and already knowing the outcome, but waiting for that match to start, it was palpable how much everybody in that building just had no idea what was going to go down, and that's that magic moment that's been so lacking.
And I think ever since kayfabe broke down, I think that they've been kind of looking for a way to do that, and they didn't really understand the internet at first or really appreciate it. And there were other things. I'm not saying I've never been surprised since I've always known wrestling wasn't real, but
Yeah, well, naturally.
but there are a bunch of things that have surprised me. But I think at a certain point it's going to get harder because especially when they make themselves so predictable. They put themselves in the hole in the first place to the point where we're going. Of course, Cena's going to win.
Well, yeah, and that whole concept of wrestling real, yes, what they're doing is real, that they're performing, they're performing a craft, they're telling you a story you know in a certain style. It's just like you would watch a play or a TV show.
Sure.
It's a different form of entertainment, different form of storytelling. So that element is real. But we all know that it's scripted and there's an outcome that's going to take place, and it's how you get there that makes it entertaining. It
And
that
frankly,
helps you put aside the fact that they're fake hitting each other. And you forget about all that.
think about films like what they're doing with this storyline. You know, it's somewhat revolutionary that we haven't seen it in a while, but the basic concept is pretty simple.
And they've done it before.
And they've done it before. But if you think about films, you have if you have a really basic plot line, very standard, universal story of I don't know, man trying to rescue wife
Man
from
overcoming
evil.
the odds.
Sure, whatever.
Defeating evil and finding himself.
The point is that if you've got a really standard, typical story that's been done and has worked over and over again, and you present it with great actors and great production, and everything goes right, and everything comes together, it's going to be a great movie. It doesn't matter that the basic story's been rehashed.
Look at 95% of all movies that are released in this country anyway.
Sure.
They all follow that same format.
Yeah.
In some way.
They're all great movies. Yeah.
Right. They're not all great movies, but generally speaking, most movies have that same format. There's a protagonist, a conflict, a resolution, and a happy ending.
But
it's how you get there and what elements you bring in to make it work and be unique and effective.
And who's
that
on
determine
screen?
whether or not it's good.
Who's on screen and how they do. I think this is probably the most important thing we can say about CM Punk Cena match. I think is what we talked about while we were watching it, which is the fact that both of those guys do such a good job of in-ring characterization, and
and portraying that through their body.
They don't have to talk. You
Right.
can see their character in their face and the way they move and the way they interact with the crowd.
I absolutely gained so much more respect, and I had a lot of respect for Cena. For as much as I don't particularly care for his matches or the gimmick, I've had a lot of respect for John Cena and the work he's
just
done.
wrestled his best damn match ever.
And I gained so much more respect for him watching this match, and that from the moment he appears on camera, he's portraying this kind of, underdog, defeated, loner almost. There's points in the match where he just, because the crowd is Chicago and it's CM Punk and everybody wants Punk to win.
That was a huge part of making this match great, was the Chicago
Yes, and
crowd.
that was excellent planning on their part. But Cena just portrayed this kind of alone character, and for a world champion, a 10-time champion, to be portraying that is so unique, and you never would have seen somebody like Hulk Hogan do that in his heyday.
He's not capable
Cena,
of it.
exactly. Cena is totally capable of portraying different dynamics with his character, and in this particular match, his body language was just, kind of not defeated, but just kind of knowing that the odds are stacked against him, and that he's questioning his own, his own odds, his own chances, and that just speaks volumes to John Cena, the performer, in that he was able to do that, and he interacted so well with the crowd. His facial expressions at different points when he would have the advantage, and he would just, I'm gonna do my shtick anyway, and you're gonna have to watch me do it.
Shuffle spot.
Yeah, and when he had, a chance at the AA, and he's
Yeah.
like, it's just, it's so.
I know you don't like it. Sorry.
Yeah, but this is who I am. I get paid to do this.
Yeah.
And that, treated us like intelligent fans because we know the role he's supposed to portray. And at the same time, he added other elements to his character too, like the excellent chain wrestling with Punk.
I know.
And
The submission wrestling.
yes,
and
he took tons of sick bumps in this
Yeah.
match, and just he was very three-dimensional in this match, and it's something that Cena matches have lacked for most cases, and it just was not the case here. He
Yeah.
was absolutely on target, and then CM Punk.
Well,
Just he wasn't. It just felt like he wasn't portraying a character. It felt like he was being himself, and that's when you are at the top of your game,
he was
portraying your character.
he was
When you are
CM
no
Punk.
longer looked at as a character.
Yeah.
And that's what he achieved.
He was trying to screw the company.
He achieved this kind of, like method acting kind of just feel to what he was doing out there, that he was this guy and he was going to screw over the WWE. And, he had the entire audience on his side. Just the feeling watching that one man and, the work that goes into it and the writing and the scripting and the matches and the history goes into that one man manipulated an entire audience for 25 minutes. It's just unbelievable the power he held going into that match and coming out of that match.
I think it's officially time for the John Cena haters to shut up, because you're wrong and he's not going anywhere anyway. So just shut up.
I've always felt that he serves a purpose.
Yeah.
But now I really feel like he serves.
I used to be one.
I
know what I'm talking about.
I really feel like he moved from just, being a serviceable role on a television program to being a bus driver basically for the product. I feel like I as a wrestling fan can be on board with where his character's going, because his character is so much more than just being, the t-shirt hawking hero.
Yeah. He's achieved a very true form of icon status in the company that very few wrestlers actually achieve, in which it's very hard to imagine the show without him.
He's done it in a very unique way. He's always kind of been in the shadow of, at first it was The Rock, and then it was Hulk Hogan, and at some points it's been even Stone Cold, that he should follow their career paths to icon status.
We've compared him to all those guys, and
he
really
doesn't need it now.
In the end, he's just John Cena.
And it's been building to that anyway, but I think this match was kind of a crescendo in that evolution of John Cena, and that I love the ending to the match where Vince is fully prepared to do the Chicago screw job, if you will, and sends in John Laurinaitis to ring for the belt, and Cena takes him out, and I love where the story goes from there. I love how they scripted it from there.
Really
yes,
well.
he did. And Cena says, "I don't want to do it that way," and that totally plays to Cena's character and the way he's been from day one with the way they portrayed him, and then looks at Vince and says, "I'm not doing this. I'm going to win this match," and then immediately loses the match.
Yeah.
Immediately Punk surprises him with a victory. And it played into the whole Cena character, so he stayed true to himself. There was no change. There was no swerve. It wasn't Stone Cold aligning with Vince to beat The Rock at Mania 17. It was Cena being Cena in every way he could be, and using
Cena,
that to further the story in a very positive way.
And Cena does Cena very well. He plays his character to the T. He's a master at it. And I think Punk, I think this will probably be, if they do it right, will be a kickstand to Punk reaching a similar status as far as, the wrestling,
right? Yeah, I think
history of wrestling and the iconographic status within the company.
I think we're both kind of on pins and needles because things have gone so wrong so many times. We've seen characters kind of elevated to this, kind of position of here's the ball, what are you going to do with it? And a lot of times
we have lacked satisfaction.
It just doesn't play out the way it needs to or the way people want it to, and I feel like they've done everything to this point to make me feel like they're going to continue doing it.
Yeah.
But I'm still reserved. I'm still very reserved about how much I want to invest in this.
It's going to be a huge letdown if they fuck it up.
And like I said, if they face off at SummerSlam, if it's Cena Punk 2 at SummerSlam,
I feel like that's been confirmed.
I feel like Punk has to win the match. I feel like storytelling-wise, Punk needs to establish dominance over Cena because so many people have been fed to Cena.
Either Punk has to win the match. Either Punk has to win the match, or they have to do something completely out of the blue, like Cena turning heel.
Well, I mentioned The Rock.
Sure, The Rock.
It's going to be in Los Angeles. That's an easy place for them to get Dwayne Johnson to be involved.
Show up, yeah.
And it would be excellent for the WrestleMania build.
To show up for one night for a paycheck.
And it'd be excellent for the WrestleMania 28 build.
Totally.
So I mentioned that element, and I want to throw that out there. But
frankly, you mentioned that I hadn't even thought of it, but now that I do think about it, they need to do some things with The Rock over the course of the year to make sure anybody cares about the Mania 28 match.
It's also exactly. I mean, that's the key.
That's
you can't just have a one-off with no build.
Announcing it a year in advance. And so if they do bring Rock into the storyline, I also think they're probably going to end up doing something with Triple H in the storyline.
They've also, they established this storyline by basically having The Rock, thwart John Cena at Mania 27, and they've also, behind the scenes, I've already read that The Rock has been contacted to be booked for shows outside of WrestleMania.
Yeah.
Now, what that entails, it hasn't been stated. They're going to keep that, under wraps as much as possible. But
it'd be a good way to go about it.
I think it would be a good angle to go, especially to get Cena out of that role with Punk too, and kind of have Punk run off on his own, so that he's not caught up in the Cena sandstorm.
I don't think Cena Rock at Mania needs to be a title match. I think it shouldn't be a title match.
Oh, absolutely not.
Because there's totally enough hype behind it. You should have other guys getting over with the championship.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, what made this match great was the participants involved, the characters they played, the build-up and the production, and the movie quality of it, and and the crowd. Everything about it just contributed.
All of the elements came together perfectly.
As opposed to the Richards Edwards match. Not saying that all the elements didn't come together.
No.
A very different kind of match.
We were equally satisfied by Richards versus Edwards from Best in the World 2011, but for different reasons. And I think to connect these two stories, we said that Cena Punk was very much a Ring of Honor style match. It was very athletic based. It was very competition based. It was Cena the man versus Punk the man. The character elements were kind of removed from the actual match itself. That's what you get almost all the time in Ring of Honor.
Although I will say the holds and the moves they did, Ring of Honor, I think recently got, watching the Richard Edwards match, a lot of strikes in that match, a lot of a lot of chain wrestling, which they did in Cena Punk, but a lot of strikes, a lot of stiff moves. It felt very UFC. The submission moves they're using are not step over toe hold face locks. They're cross arm breakers, which will actually break your arm.
Yeah,
if applied correctly. And
the Achilles lock.
Exactly.
And so transitioning
to. I see what you're pointing about the Ring of Honor match, but I think they wrestled a very what people I think today are certainly associating with the Ring of Honor style of the more realistic sports like.
Yes, and I think that's what Ring of Honor wants to do, and they achieved that.
That's what they should do.
Like I said, going into this match, there was both men. It was advantageous to both men to make this match as best as could be, because with the booking being Richards going over Edwards, you have Edwards going in as a champion, kind of an unexpected champion, facing off with the guy that a lot of people have already said was better than him in the first place, and he had yet to prove that he was, above. And then you had Richards coming in, being anointed champion, when, a lot of people said he should have been doing that back in December.
Well, Richards, the build of this was when Richards came, they asked Richards if he was going to challenge, and he said, no, I'm not going to be the one to break Eddie's title reign and spoil his moment. And Eddie was like, what? We've only wrestled once before on Ring of Honor TV, and I beat you.
And yeah, and
So
they incorporated that into the storyline, but you know, the outside the story, the actual booking of it, both men had a lot to gain and a lot to lose by this match, and it looked to me like they agreed to make this as stiff and believable as possible.
oh my
Some
god,
just absolute sick bumps,
they
sick
beat the
twisted kicks,
shit out of each
and
other.
the headbutt moment on the top of the turnbuckle, the uh, the the slam on the apron. The
Oh, the 2K1 driver on
Yeah,
the
yeah,
apron,
on
yeah,
the
the double
apron that
stomp through the
just
table, the
wow.
and then the finish with Richards just kicking Edwards in the head over and over and
And Edwards
over
not
again.
quitting. You know,
Yeah,
Edwards basically being knocked out to finalize it for Richards.
yeah,
It made it a very athletic feel in that it wasn't about hitting your finisher and pulling off the greatest show. It
sure.
was about who would win the battle.
Hmm.
And they
And they did a
just
very good job of making the two guys look like mirrors of each other and making them constantly being
but
in
also making them
competition.
look like standalone
Yeah,
too. They definitely stood alone on their own, but at the same time had a lot of equal elements. They matched up so well, and they naturally have so much chemistry in the ring. It just played off perfectly in this match.
yeah,
And, going away from it, you've got so much changing in Ring of Honor with Sinclair Broadcasting coming in and the TV show launching, and clearly I think they want Davey Richards to be the face of their company at least initially, and
he's their most over star, so it makes sense.
it's the right move. I think
Yeah.
he looks the part, for what they're looking for. Strong, athletic, can go the distance in any kind of match, and where Edwards goes from here, he gained a ton of overness from where he was before he won the title. He's the only Triple Crown champion,
Yeah,
in Ring of Honor history, and
it's true.
he can stay at the top of the card, I think, and not take a step down. Kind of like
Yeah.
Roderick Strong, I think, took a step down once he lost his title.
Hmm.
He also had to go to Japan and do some other
I'm
things.
sure he
So it's
didn't
kind
have
of
to, but
well, I mean, he got booked over there. It's kind of hard to stay at the top of the card when you're on the round.
and
But
the other thing about Davey being champion is that with all the problems they've had with crowning guys champion lately, and then having them signed to bigger companies,
yeah.
Davey's loyal. Davey's not going anywhere.
Well, and they're entering this era now where people are going to be signed under contract and they can make long-term plans and
Yeah,
and kind of book things for the future, and they don't have to worry about whether or not these guys can show up at the next show, travel constraints and whatnot.
right.
They're moving to an era now where this is a group of 15 to 20 guys, I would say, that are definite products that you're going to see on a week-to-week basis, and
Mm,
they want Richards to be the face of the company, and I think it's an excellent choice.
yes.
And the way they went about doing it at Best of the World definitely proved that.
Yeah, but Edwards definitely has, and the post match stuff they did with Richards made a really emotional speech. Edwards made a really emotional speech congratulating him. Very very clear. Um, I really don't think Edwards loses anything
No,
from
no.
losing this
I
match, or
think,
even from having his title reign being comparatively as short as it was when you look at other
and I was
ROH.
my biggest concern with them pulling the trigger on Edwards Richards so early, in the grand scheme of things, was that it would hurt Edwards' overness, and I
Right.
don't think it has.
It is interesting, comparing the story of this match to the story of the other, because here what you've got is, another fairly common angle in wrestling, where with the two friends, the two best friends, tag team partners, one of them wins the title, and now they're fighting over it. And they're not doing, neither of them is turning heel.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
just, they're just, having
And
competition.
neither
Edwards
of
said,
them
"I need to know if
pleaded
I
to
can
the
beat you."
fans to get support either. It wasn't about a play of who could get who
Yeah.
on whose side. It was just, we're still who we are, but now we're going to fight over the same title.
Yeah, and I think it's just added a completely different element to the match, and I think in some ways, I mean, because the match was amazing. In some ways, I think the the story behind it detracted from it when you compare it to Cena Punk, because
Yeah, yeah.
because it's great to watch two guys who like and respect each other beat the shit out of each other for a title. It's better to watch good versus evil, and the villain against the hero, and all the inherent conflict you've got there, as opposed to, you know,
Yeah, when it's done that way with that conflict and it's not predictable.
yeah, it's the reason why it's more fun to watch division rivalry games in football.
Yeah.
Because they don't like each other.
Or it's more fun to watch a rivalry game in college football.
Sure.
Versus a random college football game 3 weeks into the season. It's better when it's good versus evil, when you have when you have an element that you root for or that you support going against an element that you despise, and when it's done so well and so unpredictable, it can't be beat.
Yeah, and unpredictable, which is interesting also, because that's the other thing about this match, is that unlike the WWE match, strangely, we were pretty sure who was going to win this one.
Yeah, Ring of Honor, has always been unique in that you're never quite sure, what they want to do, where they want to go.
Yeah, I mean, especially because we had thought Richards was going to win a couple of times before.
They invite you in basically and make you a part of their company, and you get this feeling when you're a fan of Ring of Honor, you get this feeling that you're part of something special and something unique, but at the same time, they try to keep you at a distance and keep you kind of guessing, and they do a pretty good job of that.
Lacking closeness.
Yeah, they do a pretty good job of keeping you kind of on your toes with what the next move's going to be.
Right.
And going into Best in the World, I think everybody kind of felt with all the other outside elements,
with
they've
the
kind of reached
Sinclair
this point.
purchase and with the whole thing of him never challenging.
They've reached this point now where they're going to have to step up their level because now their wrestlers are exposed more often. We're going to see them more. They're going to be on a more national stage. They're more recognizable. The storylines have to get more complex. They have to approach you at a different angle, and that's where WWE has had all those elements, but they haven't gotten complex. They haven't approached you from a different angle.
Mm-hmm.
They've done the exact same product over and over, and this Punk Cena storyline and just the Punk storyline in general was them finally saying, we have all of these elements working against us. Let's turn that and work it against you, the fan, so that you don't know what's happening next, and that you want to watch because
it was
you don't know what's going to happen
work.
next. Yeah,
it was absolutely masterful work, and Ring of Honor, the position they're in right now, trying to grow, trying to get back on television,
and it's always been very temperamental and kind of calm growth. They haven't skyrocketed. Even when they went to HDNet, they didn't really change a whole lot. They've been very focused on small incremental growth.
But the thing about them is that they need to put on a great show every time.
Yeah.
Ring of Honor needs to hit a home run with every IP review they make, especially the IP reviews. They need to. And so Edwards and Richards was absolutely phenomenal from in-ring perspective with it was so much action that it was constantly cringing and oh my god, and like just the physicality of this match was amazing. That's what they need to do. They need to bring it every show.
Yeah. And that
gets
harder and harder the higher up the ladder you get.
But WWE, isn't really in a position where they have to do that. So
for a couple of reasons. One, they have 5 hours of television programming plus a couple hours of internet programming every week.
Money.
They've got the most money and they've got the deepest roster. So they don't have to use the same 10, 15 guys every single show like Ring of Honor does.
I might make an argument that the TNA roster is deep, but right, that's maybe not. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But just because I've been watching Raw lately and the roster seems really thin. Alex Riley was in the title tournament. Like, that's a thin roster.
You saw how over he was at Money in the Bank, though.
Yeah, that was
you can't ignore the fact that the guy was over.
That's true. But still. Anyway. Yeah, he was really over. That was really cool, actually.
But they've got the tools
is
to stretch thinner further.
Yeah. And what I'm saying is that Ring of Honor has to do a great show every time. So Richards and Edwards, did its job and did what needed to be done. Whereas I feel like certainly. Whereas I feel like Punk Cena went above and beyond. They didn't need to make that a great match.
There were a lot of ways that could have achieved the same finality with the story where Punk wins, and it would have been weak or lackluster. You could have had somebody run in and help Punk win. You could have had Vince screw over Punk and Punk run away with the belt anyway.
Vince screw Cena for some reason.
You could have had The Rock show up there. You could have done a lot of other things that I think would have equaled what people were expecting, but not exceeded. And
Yeah.
they
And if you
instead
would,
took the high road and exceeded the expectations.
and if they had equaled expectations, or even not even, or even failed to meet expectations, if expectations had been lacking in the meeting of, I'm just trying to say lack more times.
I know, I can tell you're really into that.
But if they had done that, then they would have been fine.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
the show
there,
goes
there
on.
wouldn't be any long-term consequences financially, unlike Ring of Honor, which is why I think, I appreciate the fact that they're going out of their way and taking some time to really try to put on a phenomenal product. And that's one thing I've been missing from WWE. It's felt like they're going through the motions.
Well, I just felt like, yeah, like the last 2 years they've been going through the motions. That they've been on the sliding scale of just predictability and lack of effort almost on the part of the creative side of things, and the higher ups really not making any changes to change the direction. And then watching the show, it just felt like it was a completely different product for one night.
Brian goes over, Christian goes over, Del Rio.
Yeah, well, and the way the matches were booked, a lot more wrestling was involved in all of the matches, and it just felt like they wanted to go a different direction with this particular show.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you could
and
spin
hopefully
that
that
off.
continues. Hopefully they don't pull a TNA.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. You beat me to it. You could spin that off, and you could be Destination X this year for TNA.
Destination what?
Hey, yeah, a whole bunch of X superstars return for one night. They have a great show, and then half of them aren't even there the next night, and the whole story's gone.
I don't know what
you can pretend you don't know what I'm talking about, but you know damn well what I'm talking about. And the WWE could go that route, but they work on a longer term scale, I think. So it's still harder for us to see. Really, I think going out of SummerSlam will be the determining factor in whether or not they are achieving the goals that need to be achieved, or if they are going to go ahead and settle, which they are so accustomed to doing.
And I really hope that they'll take this and make the most of it. We'll just have to wait and see. I'm not willing at this point to declare that it's the most brilliant thing ever.
No.
Neither am I willing to declare that it's that they're automatically going to kill it at SummerSlam because they're going to have Cena go for Punk.
Right.
So, bottom line, let's just assuming for a moment that there's still a good time left in the year, but assuming for the moment that one of these two are match of the year candidates.
Sure. And they probably
Which one gets it?
As far as I'm concerned, you can't beat the WWE at their game. And Ring of Honor, they do a separate game.
When they're on, yeah.
When they're on Ring of Honor, they still have to do a separate game to get their crowd. And the WWE, when they do their thing right, they cannot beat. And they have the history of the company, the history of the business, the history of the performers, and the location, and the crowd, and the production, and everything that goes into their shows. When it all comes together and it's a united front to present a specific idea and a specific storyline, they can't be beat. So as far as I'm concerned, when you throw in the fact that it was a phenomenal match, you can't trump that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that WWE and anyone else is going to have to work really hard to put on a better match this year than what we saw at Money in the Bank with John Cena and Punk. And all respect to Richards Edwards, because dear God, that was amazing.
Yes.
But sometimes it's just as an overall product, when WWE puts together the whole package, that there's no stopping them.
So there.
Yeah, I think that's probably the case, and I'm just privileged that I think it's great that we even get to watch either of those matches.
Yeah.
I'm just happy about that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we'll see you next time, and hopefully WWE doesn't screw this up.
Don't forget to follow me on Twitter, at EJ Kaboom.
Follow him on Twitter. I don't have a Twitter account.
I'm working on it.
You can yeah, right. That's fine. You should really subscribe to these videos though.
You can talk to Nicole Matthews.
Okay, maybe.
Just